Okay, so 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. I can see people joining. We will start the session shortly. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, tax fans, depending on where you are located. And welcome to our Global Mobility Trends and Forecasts webinar. Today, we will host an interactive virtual session, and we're not alone. I'm happy to share with you that many people from all over the world have registered for today's event. The disruption brought about by the pandemic has reshaped the way we work and approach to globally mobile employment. This has emphasized the need for comprehensive and timely mobile policies to be aligned with evolving realities. This virtual event will cover the new trends of global mobility and compliance in various countries, as well as best practices to support mobile employees in these challenging times. Please take a few minutes to read through the disclaimer for this event. We truly look forward to all of your questions and comments. You can do so by using the Q&A box on your toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Even if you cannot see the questions, the host can see them. Due to time restrictions, our presenters will do their best to respond to all questions received during the event. We will also conduct a short survey at the end of the event, which will be anonymous, by the way. We would appreciate your honest feedback, as this enables us to improve our virtual event offering to you. The survey will automatically pop up on your screen after the session ended and will take less than 2 minutes to complete. By way of introduction, my name is Stefan de Keulaar. I'm PKF International's Tax Director based in Belgium, and I'm joined today by presenters from our PKF member firms from all over the world. Our speakers for today are Leo Parmigiani and Marco Chang, respectively tax partner and senior tax manager at PKF O'Connor Davies in New York, Elmer van Lienen, tax partner at PKF Wallast in the Netherlands, Phil Broadbury and Louise Fryer, respectively technology partner and tax director at PKF Littlejohn in London, and Torsten Haake, senior manager at PKF Fasselschlage in Duisburg, Germany. Let's look at some facts and figures of the PKFI network. So PKF International is a network of legally independent accountancy and business advisory firms. It has achieved more than 5 decades of continuous growth and is represented in more than 480 locations in 150 countries. The network was formed in 1969 from firms founded in the 19th century. In 2020, PKF member firms had a combined revenue of approximately 1.4 billion USD. PKF member firms have around 20,000 staff across the world, of whom 1,700 are partners. The PKFI network provides common working practices and quality standards worldwide for its member firms. So, without any further ado, I will give the stage to our first presenter, Leo Parmigiani.
Well, thank you, Stefan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for attending. We're pleased you could join us to discuss the current state of affairs for global mobility and global workforces around the world. As the expression goes, we are living in interesting times, in an environment that we could not even imagine a couple of years ago. The global pandemic and world developments, especially what's going on in Ukraine as we speak, has changed everything. Where we work, where we live, how we communicate, how we conduct meetings, who we work for, what is the legal relationship between the service providers and service recipients, and like now, how we conduct webinars. We certainly saw the world trending towards remote workplaces and seminars over the past decade, but the acceleration over the last few years has been simply amazing. So the question we have to ask ourselves, how has the global workforce paradigm shifted? Is it temporary or is it more permanent in the future? And we must think about How do we prepare for it? What steps do we need to take to stay ahead of the curve, or at least keep up with it? In today's presentation, we will discuss our views on the global workforces from an accounting and tax point of view, and what employers should be considering in this ever-changing environment. As introduced, my name is Leo Parmigiani, and I'm the chairperson of PKFI's Internationally Mobile Employee Tax Committee. As Stefan stated, PKF is a global network of independent accounting, tax, and business consulting firms. And we have a global tax committee, which establishes quality standards of tax practice. We develop cross-border products and services, and we assist in servicing our clients around the world. The tax committee has created 4 pillars of practice area, including this one, IME, indirect tax, tax structuring, and transfer pricing. This webinar is one of a series of tax educational events, and we hope you can join us in the future. Now, this presentation will not be a technical tax presentation, so you can relax. We believe we will keep you engaged and awake. It'll just be a conversation amongst tax experts, basically unrehearsed, free flow of ideas. It should be interesting. So just relax and enjoy it. If you have any questions, please send them to us. If we cannot get to them today, we will certainly follow up promptly. So let's get started with our panel discussion and our discussion questions. Question number 1, I'll address this to Louise Fryer. Do you expect mobility workforce and remote working to increase or decrease? Have your clients created new work models? Are there any new global mobility policies? Louise, what do you think?
Hi, Leo. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I think that all things being equal, mobility and remote working will increase, but it will take on a different format. Mobility is a constantly evolving arena, and working models have changed significantly since I started my career. When I did that, it was long-term assignments, tax equalization, and everything followed a very definite path. Undeniably, we live in an international environment, and for business to continue to develop and grow, many will need to expand into international markets. So whilst this brings exciting opportunities, it also brings challenges. And that's something I'm hearing quite a lot. So opportunities versus challenges. Very often, businesses will carry out due diligence in respect of group structuring, VAT, transfer pricing, to make sure that they get that part right. But the people element sometimes gets lost along the way. I cannot stress how important people resource planning is in an international arena. And it's not just because it's what I do for a job, but because people drive the business. It may be that the skills required to develop the business cannot be found locally, or the person with necessary knowledge may currently be working in another country and needs to move. Of course, there is business travel, but the last 2 years have shed a different light on the ease and convenience of simply jumping on an aeroplane. So we are seeing a shift in how companies are looking to staff their proposed expansions. Short-term assignments are becoming much more popular. There's also the new hybrid model, working models, and staff asking to fully relocate from their home country, to relocate to work from their home country rather than the country of their employer. So these are obviously some of the challenges. Brings questions around the need for visas, risk of creation of permanent establishment, different employment law, salary levels, not to mention that each country has its own tax and social security rules, and rarely are they the same. Employment law is an interesting one, and it's not what we're here to discuss, but often people don't realise they have to comply with the employment law where the person's physically present rather than where the company is present. There will be differences for home country citizens, business travellers, and seconded people. 2 things are incredibly important if you're going to start working internationally or even continue working internationally, because I said everything keeps changing. The first is to seek professional advice. And the second is to make sure that your company has global mobility policies that clearly state what the company supports and what it doesn't. That saves a lot of arguments further down the line. It saves a lot of questions being asked to HR if it's there in black and white. The question about are they new global mobility policies? Well, policies need to be regularly reviewed anyway and updated to cater for the changing markets. Just from what we see on a day-to-day basis, some of the types of policy that we recommend are a general manual that's available to employees, clearly sets out the conditions of any assignments, common or working from home arrangement. Specifics can be addressed in a separate secondment letter or employment contract. A procedures manual can be very helpful for HR teams, ensuring that the correct actions are undertaken in the correct order. For many HR teams, this whole change in working, hybrid working, international hybrid working is something that they need quite a lot of guidance on. And finally, of course, the tax and social security policy manual. Does the company offer tax equalisation to ensure employees are no better or worse off? Does the company make additional assignment related payments such as cost of living allowance, school fees? What support is given in terms of relocation? Does the company pay for tax services for the individual in home and host country? If the person goes abroad and decides to forget all about the tax or social security issues and just carries on with their job, who's responsible for penalties for underpayment of tax or late filing of returns? And what is the social security position? So I think, to sum up, it's widely accepted that the new ways of working forced by the pandemic are here to stay in one form or another, because they do undeniably have advantages. The business world will need to continue to evolve to meet the new demands. So we really have to keep our fingers on the pulse and be agile in our response. Okay, so that's my thoughts on it. Elmer, what are yours?
Thank you, Louise. Yeah, I agree with you that I see similar increase of the short-term assignments as well. So that's basically in the Netherlands what we also see. And I think, to add to your input, I think what's very interesting in the Netherlands is that we have a very low unemployment rate, lower than 3%. So we have more jobs and no people to fill those jobs. We see that a lot of companies are confronted with the fact that they need to find those talented people outside of the Netherlands. So that will significantly give a boost to the increase of global mobility for companies in the Netherlands. And they are not fully already up to speed in the policies, designing those policies, having those policies in place. And I agree with you that it will give risks if you are going to have these talented people outside of the Netherlands working in the Netherlands. Be aware and get prepared. I think this is the most important message. Yeah. So something else, somebody else who wants to add, maybe Torsten, do you see in Germany?
Yeah, thank you, Elmar. Well, I think what you have described and also what Louise has described is very much the same as we see it here in Germany. So a lot of people, or a lot of jobs maybe to be filled with good staff, but it's difficult to find good staff, and maybe this is a way also to attract staff, allowing them to work from home, which is something which becomes more and more popular if you look at the millennial generation. So I think basically I would expect that we will see an increase of remote working in the future. But I think in the first place, it's more like replacing the work at your local employer in Germany. So just stay home or work from home, or split it between home and the office, and not so much on an international cross-border basis. But I think also this will stay an important factor.
Okay.
Yes. I want to add a point to Louis' point. Louis mentioned right now planning is very important. I fully agree, and I would say actually it's more important than ever. The reason is we have seen cases because of the pandemic and also the new work mode right now. We have certain clients and company, they have assignees, their assignment around the world. Actually, it was delayed, or maybe it started even a little bit earlier. So we have cases that certain US employees, they were relocated a little bit earlier to the UK. And then because the company, they could not have sufficient time to set up their payroll arrangement, but the employee actually is physically working in the UK already, which means it creates certain payroll and withholding issues. So a better planning actually will be good for the employee and also for the company. So back to you, Louis.
Okay, so thank you very much. We're going to have a polling question for you so that we can get some feedback in terms of what the thoughts are and what's happening outside of our organisation or what we know. So here's polling question 1, which is, do you expect mobility workforce and remote working to increase or decrease? You don't have to agree with me. Okay, Leo, do you want to take us through the answers?
Yeah, I guess I could take over. 96% said yes, not surprising. Whoever said no, they must be living under a rock. Sorry about that. And if you're not sure, then maybe you're not awake. But all kidding aside, I think we all agree that the world is going towards remote work, at least hybrid, 2 to 3 days a week. I mean, I guess it's good. You know, work at home Monday and Friday and 3 days in the office to plan meetings, make it more productive when you're in the office. So I think that's the way of the world going forward. Can we move on to our next question, please? Okay, this one is for Elmer. I hope you're not surprised I'm giving you this one.
No.
Well, I think you mentioned permanent establishment or something like that before, but no trick question here. What are the risks related to the creation of a permanent establishment? Are you advising clients on the business tax risk? What should employers do to be in compliance? What records should be kept? Maybe you could describe what a permanent establishment is quickly, Elmer?
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Yeah, the risk of a permanent establishment is actually if somebody important to the company is going to work in another country. That could be due to COVID, that this person is transferring to another country, that this person is going to represent this company or making decisions in any way. And if that would be a situation that could trigger a risk of this company being seen as a permanent establishment by means of this individual taking these decisions. And in the Netherlands, we actually have some situations already, quite some situations with different countries, in which senior level, also board members actually made the decision to leave the Netherlands and go to another country. Of course, they thought that would be for a very short period. But as we have seen, we are confronted with all these impact and uncertainties with COVID. And we see it now also with this war going on. You never know what's going to happen next week or next month. So changes are there constantly, and I think companies were not really aware of those potential risks in a number of those cases that we assist. And if there is a permanent establishment, then the risks for corporate income tax or for other tax areas come in. So it's really important to understand what these changes have on the company, make a good assessment. understand what's going on. And I think that's why the policies are really important. If there are no policies in place, then probably no processes are in place. And those processes to mitigate any tax risks or business related risks are crucial. So that's, I think, important to understand what's going on and also in the company and consult with a advisor on the risks. And it's important in order to be compliant, to ensure, is this person who's from a senior level going to work in another country, what is this person going to do? Is this written down in employment contracts, in addendums to the contracts, and then assess if those way of working would lead to these risks. They may not, but if they do, then the risks are significantly, they are very high. So if you take a narrow approach, if you only take an employment tax approach, then you might be in a bad place. So take a holistic approach for all your risks, tax, business risks together. And if you assess that, if you make a good assessment and you have that in your file, then you are ready when tax authorities will ask questions, that you could say, we made an assessment based on the right facts and circumstances, and we understand the impact. And what I also have seen, and Louisa stated that in the first question as well, is that you could be confronted with not only tax issues, but also employment law risks and issues. Somebody works in another country, then basically the employment law becomes mandatory in some countries. So then it could be that you're jeopardizing non-compliance. So it's highly important. Yeah, that's what I see on this risk. And Marco, do you see similar? Do you have these PE issues as well in the US?
Yes, actually, quite a lot, because we do have many clients that when they send their employees to another country, they are not aware of the permanent establishment may drag the US firm into the other country's tax reporting or filing requirement. And one of the solutions that some of the clients may consider is that they may send the employee to the other countries as a local hire, which means basically it breaks the tide between the two countries. But of course, there's certain consideration to be assessed. But Elmar, you made a very good point, is that any companies who have employees moving around the world really needs to look into this carefully, because the tax authority, when they look at the situation or during any kind of audit, this could lead to a very certain kind of big issues. So back to you, Elmar.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, what we also see is that of course we follow the also from employment tax, we actually look at the corporate income tax assessment for the permanent establishment. So it's a combined effort. So you need all tax experts to work together and liaise and connecting. That's important. In the UK or Germany, any additional thoughts on this PE consideration?
I don't have any, well, I do have thoughts on the PE, but I think it's all pretty much covered. But in terms of companies and compliance and their employees, a quick story. I was on holiday last year in Croatia, and we were on a small boat with various people. And I overheard a conversation between two American girls and one was saying, oh, I'm living in London with my boyfriend and have done since COVID started. The company that I work for in the US has no idea, but it doesn't matter. And I put my background on when I have Zoom, so they don't know where I am. And she'd been here for 18 months at least. So whilst I don't imagine she was senior enough to have created a PE, she certainly would have created payroll reporting obligations, UK tax obligations, and that would have needed to have been married up with her continuing US tax obligations. But I think it's much more prevalent than people realise.
Did you offer her free advice, Louise?
Absolutely not. I didn't want to ruin our holiday.
Okay, but this is a
great
good one.
That's a great story.
Yeah, and it's true. It's so true. Yeah.
So Emma, maybe I can share some thoughts from a German point of view,
Yeah,
and
please.
add it to that what you have mentioned before. We in our practice in Germany, we also deal with a lot of cases where we have employees of foreign employers which are working in Germany, and they do that mostly from home, but also in so-called shared office spaces. So, and regarding the question whether this is a PE or not, well, in a home office situation, normally a PE is not assumed for corporate tax purposes, because private home is something like a sacred from that, because the employer does not have any power of disposition over the private rooms of a person.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it has to be checked, of course, whether maybe this shared office space could create a permanent establishment, and also if the person, and you mentioned persons who have a certain importance for the company, for the foreign company, whether they act as like a dependent agent. Maybe they can conclude contracts on behalf of that foreign company.
Yeah.
And finally, also what you have mentioned, we see that in Germany as well, and we are advising our clients on that risk, that people who are, for example, CEO and directing their company from Germany,
Exactly.
this is also very much risky in order to create a permanent establishment for business tax purposes. And this is, of course, something which should be observed very well.
Yeah, thank you, Thorsten. I think that's the lesson. I think, be aware, and if you don't have the insights, get the insights to avoid high risks. Yeah. Okay, then I think for the next question, back to you, Leo.
Thank you. Next question, please. Okay, we're gonna go back to Thorsten. This is related to permanent establishment. Now, permanent establishment generally is an income tax issue, could be indirect tax, VAT, but definitely related to that. When someone's in another country, are there specific employer obligations, employment tax considerations in your country, and are those considerations comparable to the permanent establishment issue?
Yeah,
So
thank you,
we
Leo.
discussed that a bit, but why don't you elaborate on the payroll obligations, Thorsten?
Yeah, so as I start with some payroll and social security aspects, and yes, indeed, if you have an employee working in Germany, you have two main areas of tax-related compliance which need to be observed. And one is the social security contributions. The second one is the wage tax. So if we start with the social security aspect, we have following general principles in German law and also in the law of the European Union. The salary of an employee is subject to social security contributions at the workplace, so in the country where he's actually working. And we also have, of course, rules within the EU, but also in the domestic law for cross-border assignment situations, and also if persons are working in more than one country for maybe one or more employers. So it's important to note that only one country can levy the social security contributions, which means that we have nothing like a salary split, which we sometimes see in the wage tax area, so in the direct taxation of the employee. So let's make a basic example and assume that we have an employee who is working in Germany full-time, and he has an employer who is resident in the Netherlands. And that employer will be obliged to register in Germany in order to withhold the wage tax, in order to withhold the employer's share and also the employee's share of the social security contributions, and to pay these contributions to the relevant authority. That would be something which is very important to observe. And if this is not done, there are higher penalties, for example, than you have in tax law. So it's really important that this is observed. And the other topic would be wage tax. So if we have a cross-border situation, the topic can be a bit more complex than the Social Security, since it has to be determined. This is done based on the applicable double taxation treaty, which portion of the salary can be taxed in each of the two countries. So that is a situation of a salary split, which maybe then occurs, which I mentioned before. But let's stick with an easy example I made before. We have a German employee and an employer in the Netherlands, and the employee is working all the time in Germany. And in this case, the salary would be taxable only in Germany. But now we have the crucial question: is the Dutch employer obliged to withhold wage tax and pay it then to the tax office? And as a rule of thumb, you can say if there is a permanent establishment for business tax purposes, then the employer has to withhold wage tax. But we also can have situations where there is no permanent establishment according to the double tax treaty, and there is maybe a permanent establishment for domestic tax law. So you can still be obliged to withhold wage tax even if there's no PE for business tax. So so in order to answer the second question on this, question 3, yeah, there is a nexus to permanent establishment for business tax purposes, but the topics to be covered under the headline employer obligation can go also beyond that. So finally, we have to say that employing an employee in a foreign country can also involve employment law questions or maybe visa questions, which also has been mentioned before, and maybe will be also touched again in the next question 4. So any other views on that, maybe from a UK perspective, Louise?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, social security and wage tax are vitally important, and they have to be considered separately because they have separate rules. I think in the UK, we have a lot of legislation around short-term business visitors, and the general guide is you can only use the treaty between 2 countries if you have an agreement with HMRC. Otherwise, you have an obligation to payroll that person, even if they're only here for a day. So it really is a question of sitting down and having a discussion and thinking about what the situation is and what you need to do as an employer to make sure that everyone's compliant.
Okay, any other thoughts from other countries?
Yeah, maybe some to add just shortly. I think also what not been mentioned yet is considering potential challenges for pension and also for healthcare. Those kind of areas are crucial when you look at the examples that you gave, Thorsten. Those are things to bear in mind. Is there an impact or not? Yeah.
And actually, Thorsten, you're right. I have a case to share. We had a German employer. They sent one of their employees to the United States. And actually what happened was they kept that person on the German payroll tax, the German social security system. But actually they did not coordinate with the US entity, the US firm. So basically the US firm just stopped the US social security contribution for the employee and also for the US entity. And suddenly they realized they have never applied for the certificates of coverage for which is required by the totalization agreement. And that's why we do have we have seen so many actual cases that without a careful consideration that may lead to a certain significant issues subsequently. Back to you, Thorsten and Elmar.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, indeed, the aspect of a certificate of coverage, or I think the most common description for that is an A1 in the EU area, or EU and EEA. So this is very important to observe as well. If you send your employees to another country, even for a short-term business trip, they have to carry an A1 certificate, which proves that they are subject to Social Security in their home country. And of course, this is even more important if you have a secondment for maybe 1 or 2 years. Okay, if there are no more comments on that question, maybe Leo, we can move on to the next.
Sure, I'll just add to that. One issue that hasn't been discussed here is, what do you do? Do you have a filing done by the home country into the host country? Or do you create a separate corporation, a subsidiary? So it's not just, do you have the risk? The question is, what do you do next? In many cases, it makes sense to create a subsidiary, develop transfer pricing, and a payroll locally. So I would add that to the conversation. So question 4, please. Okay, this one's for Marco. Is working from home and remote working strictly a tax or legal issue? Are there any other considerations to navigate? Thorsten teed that one up a second ago, but I'm giving it to you, Marco.
Thank you, Leo. And after we have discussed the first couple of questions, I think most of us and most of you would agree it definitely is more than a tax and a legal issue. The reason is right now we have seen a new work arrangement, new work environment around the globe. And basically, because of the pandemic and because of the relocation, become different right now. So the it becomes more of a human resources immigration, and also the quarantine requirements in multiple different countries will be involved and needs to be considered. So the first thing is the employee right now, the long-term assignment, some of them become a short-term assignment, or maybe even multiple different short-term assignments for the same employees. There are certain companies, they will make certain arrangements saying that they send their employees to another location, but not in a longer term. They will separate to like a 2 months period. And then you come back to your home, and then you go there again for a few months. And there is also a mix of like a remote working for the same project. So which means when the company and the assignee, when they make an arrangement, at least the human resources, they have a lot more planning they need to do. The reason is a work visa. What kind of work visa you need to apply for before going to the other country? And then the timing of applying the work visa may be significantly longer now. There's a lot of delay due to the pandemic, the travels. And another item that Elmer mentioned before, so how about the employee? What do they think about the work arrangement? So, which means when the company negotiate the assignment contract, the relocation package to the employees, they need to think about, is it feasible to do it? Will the cost go up? Will the assignee accept this assignment? Definitely the assignments around the world, it went down during the pandemic period. But we have seen that the demand for the need for sending employees around the world still exists. So which means the human resources, they really need to coordinate with the employees, and they need to get us involved, because from a legal perspective or some other considerations such as permanent establishment we have discussed. So basically it becomes a 3-way or maybe sometimes even a 4-way coordination. The corporation, the human resources is number 1. The employee is number 2. The accounting services, the accountant is number 3. Sometimes the client, the company, they may even need to get the immigration attorney involved. And to add on to that is the quarantine requirements in different countries. Some of the countries actually, they require right now 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks quarantine requirements. So that needs to be carefully planned before moving your employees around the world. So and of course we are here to help, and we have been had valuable discussion with the client in terms of planning and how to meet their need. So with that said, let me turn it over to Elma. So Elma, we have had a lot of discussion on this before. So what is your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Marco. From a Dutch perspective, I think it becomes more a legal driven change. In the Netherlands, we have seen that actually there is a new law coming in, which will be pushed by Parliament this year. If this law is agreed by Parliament and implemented in the Netherlands, people can actually work flexible, remote. So that will give a big push to the tax considerations for companies to say, okay, this is possible. Employees get a lot of flexibility to work where they want to work, and to just need to act as a company. And we see this in the Netherlands, and I think a lot of companies want to have policies such as an EMEA policy or a global policy, but I think it's good to think more global, but act local, because you need to understand the implications of those policies in your country where you are physically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How about you? Thank you, Elma. How about you, Luis?
I think I think we've covered it pretty comprehensively. I think tax, social security are really important because of the implications that they could have. But I do think it's very much a legal issue. It's around employment contracts, it's around employment law, and it is around a company having visibility as to where its employees are and what they're doing.
Exactly. Awesome.
Well, I see it also both as a legal and a tax issue, but there are some interesting legal aspects to that. For example, in Germany, we have currently, or it's mandatory currently to work from home, where, of course, only where that is possible due to Corona, and this obligation will be cancelled on the 20th of March. And so the question is obvious: what comes next? So, and for a while there is a political and social discussion going on whether employees should have a legal right to claim for working from home. And you can imagine that not all employers would really love that. But there's a strong movement and strong unions and strong groups who are supporting the view of the employees. So we will see where this is going. And it's another interesting aspect in the social security area, because we have one of the pillars in the German social security system is an so-called accident insurance, and this is covering, for example, injuries which you have on your way from home to work and from work back home, for example, a car accident or similar. And this is leading to an interesting question for people who are working from home. How do you define the work between home and work? So it's really interesting, and there are interesting judgments in the meanwhile on that. So even if you walk maybe in your own house, the stairs from up to your working room, this may be the work to the way from work to home to work. Sorry. So that could be also tricky.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Thorsten, and thank you, everyone. Back to you, Leo.
Okay, question 5, please. Elmer, your turn again.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question, and again, like I said, this is not all tax driven. It's really employment considerations and how you attract employees. So the question is, can a work from home policy help companies attract the workforce of the future? Do your clients consider this as a competitive advantage to attract potential talent? Elmer?
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Yeah, this is, I think, a very interesting question. and it's looking at it from so many angles. If I look from the Netherlands, and I'm very interested to hear from the other countries how they see it and how this develops in their country. As I already mentioned, companies are struggling in getting talented people in the Netherlands, outside of the Netherlands. So the war for talent is going on, and large companies. I have seen this development that they actually said, as Torsten explained already in his comment, you can work from anywhere, wherever you want to go. It's fine with all the tax challenges that they have, but I see that also a lot of companies are struggling. How do I attract the right people? How do I make myself interesting? How do I get people to work with me? And the work-life balance is a one that has become in a different light in terms of post-COVID. We are coming in a place, especially in the Netherlands now, that where we see that people can go to the office again, but some of them, they like this hybrid model. They like to work from home, and when they go into the office, do they get the way of working that they really like? And companies are struggling with this. How do I make sure that people get the right guidance? You can imagine if people work from home mainly, especially new people that start working for a company, they like to have the right guidance, and they like to see each other, but they also like to see the people who can bring knowledge to them and bring them a step further. So it's definitely giving them a advantage if you are interesting enough for the new talented people, the millennials, as Torsten explained. Those people will demand that companies have at least their thoughts on it. They don't only tell them, but they do as they are telling what kind of company they are. They are showing that they are that kind of company. So they are struggling. I see it with a lot of companies, but for sure, thinking now about a policy, how it should look like, looking at COVID and how to design and implement that. It should be high on the agenda from a strategic point of view. It's critical. Yeah. Also, if you look 5 years ahead, if you don't have the right people, you are in a bad place. Yeah, for sure. How is that in the US, Marco? What do you see?
I agree to you, and basically the policy, it is looks like right now the trend is that the policy needs to be more flexible, because it is both way. It has to be a mutual agreement between the employer and the employee, and then like you said before, the right now most companies they have a little bit difficult time to find the talents, because certain people they for now they're not working for a moment. So Dawson and Louise, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is whether or not it's a competitive advantage or not, I don't know, because I think any company that wants to attract the right talent is having to consider the work from home policy or the hybrid working. I know that from personal experience at PKF, we're interviewing various candidates at various levels, including graduates. And one of their questions, without exception, is, do you have a hybrid working policy? Do you work from home? So the answer to that is yes, we do. And we operate ours in such a way that we have a compulsory team day in the office. So for example, for human capital, it's a Tuesday. The whole team is in on a Tuesday. And then we get to choose which other day we want. So, I like getting on a Thursday, for example, because I know that's corporate taxes day that they all have to be in. So as I say, it's definitely a question. I think it needs to be designed around time in the office to get to know people, to understand the organisation and to learn. I quite like working from home a couple of days a week because I get the opportunity to sit down and get on with things without being interrupted to a large extent. But I think it's certainly something that isn't going to go away. And it is something that we need to think about when we want to attract the right talent.
Yeah, this-
Let's jump to the next question so we can get them all in. And great segue, because Louise was speaking, I was thinking about Brexit.
wasn't there a polling question after 5?
Oh, yeah, I'm
Leo?
sorry. Yeah, there's a polling question first. That's right,
Just-
Elmer. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's the second polling question. Do you think a flexible work from home policy help companies attract the workforce of the future? And there are 4 choices. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Elmer. In the meantime, we had a terrific question that was raised by one of our audience members. It's a question that maybe we should have thought of ourselves. If we can get to it, I will. If nothing else, I'll read it and we can think about it and maybe give a response to this person. Whoever sent the question, it says anonymous. So if we'd like to respond to you directly, so maybe you could tell us who you are and we will send a response if we can't get to it. Thank you. Okay, so the answer to poll number 2 is 65% absolutely necessary, 25% recommended, 10% say helpful but would not attract more employees, and I guess no one responded it would be harmful for morale. So I guess that's in line to what we were thinking too. Maybe not absolutely necessary, certainly helpful, and you may attract more people. So let's move back to that question. Louise, how has Brexit affected international mobility, visas, Social Security, etc.? Are employers still relocating employees to and from the UK? You're the perfect person to answer this question. Louise?
I have a role in life. Brexit, there was a lot of noise around it. We're just over a year down the line from when the UK parted company with the EU. And it has been an interesting time, but it's fair to say that COVID has also had an impact on where we find ourselves today. So we've had kind of a double whammy in lots of ways. I think COVID in lots of ways has helped because companies have had to adapt and technology has supported remote working. But as the world opens up again, we're seeing companies starting to relocate their people, catch up where they've been in a bit of a bit of no man's land for the last year and a half. So they need, they're looking to get on and grow their business. I think that there was an expectation in some areas that there would be a mass exodus from the UK as a result of Brexit. But it's fair to say, certainly from what we've seen, that whilst groups have reassessed their position, there've not been any dramatic exits. What we are seeing, and this goes back to a point made earlier on, is that we're seeing more planning. So it's no longer as easy for a UK person to go and work anywhere in the EU and vice versa. If they're coming to work in the UK, they need to have a visa. In order to apply for a visa for an employee to work in the UK, the company must have a sponsor license, and all these things take time. Those companies who are international as a result of being based in the US or Canada, as well as the EU, just to use an example, they're used to the visa process. And so they've simply added the UK to the list of countries that require a visa. We've seen some companies in the UK also setting up in Ireland and the nearer countries in the EU, such as France, Spain, Portugal, so that they continue to have access to EU markets, but they've still retained their bases in the UK. The reverse is that companies based in the EU are still keen to set up in the UK as they regard it as an important market. But once again, it comes down to planning and due diligence work to make sure that it's the right move at the right time. We didn't experience any real problems with currency as we never adopted the euro, so there was no real changes there. To get a little bit technical, tax treaties between the EU and the UK have remained largely the same from an employment taxes perspective. And so there's been very little disruption on that front. However, social security agreements between countries have changed. And as Thorsten was talking about earlier, from a German perspective and certificates of coverage, it's the same in the UK if you're traveling. Social security agreements with the EU countries are driven by EU legislation. And as we left, we have to start all over again with most places. The withdrawal agreement between the UK and the EU contained regulation around ongoing social security obligations, but this is a complex area. It's written in legal language and it doesn't make for a very exciting read. Social security is generally payable where you work, but for international workers, there are special provisions allowing individuals to remain in their home country's social security system subject to meeting certain criteria. The UK government continues to work with the EU to establish practical reciprocal provisions on social security coordination, which includes preventing paying social security in two countries at once, again, as Thorsten referred to earlier. An interesting live example is that even though social security arrangements between the UK and France were covered by the withdrawal agreement, as a matter of policy, the French social security authorities have not been agreeing extensions to certificates of coverage that extended beyond the 30th of June 2021. This was a complete surprise to many, and certainly a complete surprise to the UK authorities when they seemed to realise was when advisors were approaching them and saying, what's going on? Currently, the UK and France are negotiating on how to take this forward, with the option of raising it with a specialised committee on citizens' rights under the withdrawal agreement. We await the outcome. I understand HMRC are expecting to have plenty more meetings with France before they get an actual answer. For those countries that were not in scope of the withdrawal agreement when we left, and the related agreements with the EEA and EFTA countries and Switzerland, the UK government has been clear that there will be changes to future social security coordination arrangements. So social security is complicated enough, but from a UK perspective, because of Brexit, we expect to see changes in the next few years. I think one area, well, actually, I know from personal experience, one area where we're experiencing delays is the movement of goods. Many UK businesses import and export materials and goods from overseas into overseas, and it's taking a while for things to settle down in respect of new processes. We haven't seen the queues of lorries, but there's a lot more paperwork to do. We did it before we joined the EU, so we can do it since. But I do think other areas of tax, such as VAT, have become a lot more complex when we exited the EU. We do have an international VAT team, and they've been running a number of seminars on this topic, covering the changes. And there has been a lot of interest as people try to get their heads around what they need to do. So that's Brexit for you, very briefly, obviously. So that's from a UK perspective. It'll be interesting to learn how the Europeans and the US view what's happened in the year since we left the EU, what difficulties they have encountered, whether they've seen their clients going, no, we're not going to the UK.
I think from my perspective is that whenever I'm into this situation, I need your help.
I've made lots of friends actually since we left.
Yeah, I think the same for the Netherlands. We still see movements between the UK and the Netherlands. We still see that. So it was in the beginning a lot of they were scared what's going on and what will happen. But I think, as you explained, Louise, the employment tax is mainly the same. You need to cover social security, but we actually are in some cases together now. So same as Marco, I will liaise with you and make sure that we solve all tax issues. Yeah.
But you haven't really seen a marked decrease in companies coming to the UK, have you?
No, we have of course seen in the news, as everybody has seen, that Shell is moving to the UK. I think this is driven by corporate income tax considerations in the Netherlands, and of course those changes and that impact will of course push if that would go for other companies as well, will push the movement between the UK and Netherlands. So these are developments that we see in the Netherlands, and let's see, yeah, what will happen in. But
it'll be interesting if they bring across the sort of one rate of corporation tax, won't it, to see what happens.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not boring. Let's put it
No,
like
it
that.
certainly isn't.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't. When somebody says you do tax, you're really boring. You go, no, because I do global mobility stroke international tax, and it involves people.
Exactly.
And so it's interesting.
Yeah.
Torsten, you want to mention
Sorry.
something? Go ahead, Torsten.
Yeah, maybe or my perception, at least from a German perspective, is that in the relation between Germany and the UK, as regards social security, there's basically been no changes to the situation before Brexit, thanks to the various agreements which have been concluded. So the withdrawal agreement on the one hand and the trade and cooperation agreement on the other hand. But I think, Luis, as you said, maybe there will be changes in the next few years to that area, and we will of course have to have an eye on that. And I think the other good news is that for taxation purposes, and this is also something you have mentioned for employment tax, but I think this is valid for in general for taxation in general, that all the tax treaties between UK and other countries in the EU haven't been affected by Brexit. They are, of course, from time to time renegotiated, but so far only Brexit didn't make a change to that. And also, it's maybe worth mentioning that we also have some other multilateral agreements between EU member states, like the Arbitration Convention, which, to my understanding, have also not been affected, because these are conventions or treaties which are separate from the law of the EU, and they have been only concluded between EU member states, but they still are applicable. But I think this is a different area of taxation which isn't in the focus today, but I think it's worth mentioning as well. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's move on to the last and final question. Okay, this has turned into a flash round because we've used up most of our time here. We want to give some time to fill. So I'm going to ask you to take out your crystal balls and give us a 30-second or so summary of what you think the future of global mobility is. Why don't we start off with Louise again? Louise, what do you think?
I think that it will continue. It will continue changing. I think the legislation will be developed to cater for those changes. But yeah, I just think it'll carry on in the world that it is, and we need to keep on top of it, and it will remain interesting.
Elmer, what do you think?
Yeah, what I see is, of course, due to COVID, that the future will be reshaped. I don't see a lot of people going on day trips to another country for a meeting. They will use digital ways like Zoom or other platforms. But we are humans. We want to see each other. So it will continue to develop. And of course, it's people business, people-driven business. So people want to see each other and work on their relationship. So it will shape in a new way. Yeah.
Torsten, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the pandemic has opened maybe the box of Pandora, if you wish, as regards to digital meetings and working from home, because most of the companies and employees would not like to want to step back beyond what has been reached nowadays. And I think that global mobility will look a bit different from what we have seen in the past. So less physical assignments and more cross-border working from home.
All right, finally, Marco, what do you think from the US point of view?
Global mobility definitely will stay, but just in a more sophisticated way.
All right, well, I thank all the panelists. I was certainly interested. Great conversation, great points. And I'd like to turn it over to our technology guru, Phil Broadberry, partner from PKF Littlejohn in London. Phil, take her away.
Thanks very much, Leo, and many thanks for inviting me on into this session. So I'm Phil, I'm one of the partners in PKF in London. And I've got about 7 or 8 minutes to talk about technology supporting global mobility. But in that time, I think it would be remiss of me not to talk about cybersecurity for a couple of moments. Every year we see increased levels of threats. That is especially true in the current climate. And we have to remember that around 90% of corporate cyber incidents start with a click on a link, whether that link be on an email or a document or an SMS. That's where the incidents start. So we're in a very heightened state of cybersecurity awareness. Please be aware of the extra threats that are going around and scams that are going around. Stay alert, think twice about particularly links that you get from untrusted sources. Protect yourselves that way, share that with your family, and that helps to protect the workplace. So that's my quick mention on cybersecurity. 2 platforms that I wanted to talk about in the next few minutes. One of them is Expat UX, the other one Suralink, both offering efficiencies, security, and enhanced experience for clients and advisors, and can be applied to the world of global mobility. Expat UX is designed specifically for internationally mobile employees who, with the support of a professional service firm, can complete their tax returns as efficiently as possible. 2 key elements, and it enables the completion of a tax organizer and a travel calendar with minimum fuss. It also features if we go back a slide, that'd be great. It also features a tracking app which feeds directly into that calendar, and documents such as pay slips, dividend statements, supporting docs, stock transactions, etc. Can be uploaded to support that tax return completion process. It's worth mentioning that the individual has got complete control over that travel tracker. It's not shared with the employer unless they give specific permission. That's a key differentiator in Expat US, in that it takes away the burden from the individual of collating and completing all of those travel details, but not at the cost of a loss of privacy. So the key thing about the organizer is that it's intuitive. It's interactive. It means you don't have to trawl through pages and pages of questions and text that aren't relevant to the answers that you've already provided. And the company that supplies Expat US, they can build bespoke organizers for any country, specific to the PKF firm, and where there's larger assignee programs. Expat US, if it's used by both the home and a host firm or firms, that information can be shared on the platform, and therefore even less duplication. All about visibility. It's all about awareness of what stage your process is at. So on this first screen, what we've got is just really highlighting that we've got a central portal, secure portal. We've reviewed the platform for their security considerations and their accreditations that are in place, and it's optimized for laptops and mobiles. So for individuals, all about ease of use, all about removal of duplication, uploading content in a timely manner, and control over when that information is shared. And for the corporate team, proactive monitoring, for example, highlighting when thresholds might be met, all in this secure environment. So on the next slide, we've got the calendar. So again, very easy to use, very easy to upload, supporting evidence. It's where that optional movement tracker kicks in based on mobile phone, GPS signals. Again, must highlight that's the control there's with the individual, A, whether it's turned on, and B, whether they share that automatically. And we're really looking at this to remove all of those emails and spreadsheets that get sent around to collate the information. On the next slide, we've got a screen which just represents this central distribution of organisers. So the organisers are tailored. We work with Expat UX to create a tailored organiser that's responsive to the questions that are answered. So it's tailored to the country. The central portal has got a clear point of what's been sent, what's been returned, where we are with the process, and that real-time view of what's been submitted. And again, from here, with permissions allowing, the advisors can get access to that information all in one central place. So that's Expat UX. On the next slide, we've got a SureLink. So SureLink's focus from launch has firmly been on the process to request and transfer information in a secure manner. It's really born out of optimizing the request list process. And that started off in audit, but we're seeing it used across all of our divisions, whether that's audit, accounting, tax, and advisory. It does not provide the tailored apps of the organizer and travel calendar that Expat UX does, but it does provide a request list solution that can be applied to pretty much any scenario where an advisor or a group of advisors are requesting a set of documents or a set of templates to be completed by a client in a timely manner. It includes full audit trails, so as well as reporting status and alerts, it's got timely updates to the right people of what compliance requirements are needed and when, what's been reviewed, what's been accepted, and any comments around those documents. We have created templates that are very focused to audit, to outsourced accounting, and to tax scenarios. So this is the engagement screen. So at the top of the screen, we've got a number of different colored boxes. Those colored boxes represent a request, and all of the requests are down the left-hand side. So we can hover over those boxes at the top, which highlights the actual request detail on the left. And from here, we can just drag and drop or enter comments about that particular request. On the left-hand side is also where we would select any templates that have been provided, which can be opened up, completed, and saved back in. On the right-hand side, we have a full history trail, including all comments, what's been downloaded, when, etc. I mentioned status reports, and on the next slide, we've got just an example here. These can be automated to a client or even to the advisor teams. And they just have a summary at the top there of over the total engagement, what percentage of things are being provided, accepted, fulfilled, or outstanding. Then we've got what's overdue now and what's coming due in the next 7 days. And at the bottom in those 4 columns, we've got the complete request list and how things break down into their various status codes. So both of these solutions are available to all PKF member firms and in turn their clients. You can speak to your local PKF office. You can contact Louise or myself for more information. So before I hand back to Stefan, just to reiterate that point about cybersecurity, think twice about things you click on, be skeptical about email you receive, follow your own firm or business's guidance, and look after yourselves out there. Thanks for your time again, and back to Stefan.
Thank you, Phil. So we received a number of questions from the attendees, and actually, Phil, the first one's for you. So will the technology solutions demonstrated bring extra costs to clients? Does have to fit the budget, right? So
cost to clients, we certainly don't provide any additional cost to clients, because both of these solutions bring efficiencies within our process. I couldn't say, PKF is a network of independent firms, and independent firms do their charging, how they'll do it, but we wouldn't typically see an additional cost being passed on, and actually both are relatively small monthly subscription fees that we pay. So generally no, Stefan.
Okay, thank you, Phil. A second question that came in goes as follows. Working from home has shown pros and cons for employees in terms of work-life balance. Are there any considerations or tax considerations to bear in mind around the globe? Elmer, maybe you can take that one.
Yeah, of course, Stefan. That is an interesting question. You see that COVID actually, has put the question up front. We have seen it can working from home, and I think employees actually find this important, work-life balance and well-being. In the Netherlands, new legislation is coming with respect also to well-being. So we see that you need to check all kind of new legislation to determine the tax consequences when looking at well-being programs. And we see this is not a development only in the Netherlands. So we see that around the globe with organizations that work internationally, that well-being is becoming a more important item on the agenda. So yeah, include this as well with working from home and look at legislation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question that came in is actually from someone from the PKF network. As auditors, in-field work is critical as body language, etc., plays a role in areas of risk. We prefer to have staff work in field, but our competitors have been allowing their staff to work from home. We are therefore forced to adopt work from home in an effort to retain staff. Has anyone else experienced this?
Maybe I can take this one.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Actually, I have read the Q&A and then I saw this question and I found it very interesting because the question was during the audit, it is very important to observe the interviewee's body language. And I think there needs to be like a balance maybe because in this case, because due to the competition, the company may need to allow a work remotely arrangement, but for certain job like field auditing, they may have some kind of difficulties. So I think that is a really interesting thing. That it gives like all the companies, all the organization to need to think about and consider. There needs to be a balance. Back to you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Another question that came in is actually one of Louise's namesakes. A number of global umbrella type companies have been set up and they offer their clients the possibility to employ people anywhere. What are your thoughts on this type of services? In your opinion, are they a good option to employ people in countries where we do not have a presence? It's almost like a small business case, perhaps, but anyone care to respond to this one?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen a few of these sort of popping up, and a couple of clients have said, should we use them? We also work with one that is US based to pick up the technical work that they can't do. And I think it's horses for courses, to be honest. They provide a service. They can, set up a payroll, and you're not creating a permanent establishment in that country, but they don't necessarily assess whether or not you have got that permanent establishment. So yes, they have a role, but at the same time, they don't offer I'm talking about the ones I know, there might be those that do, but they don't offer the technical depth and the background that allow you as a company to make a good decision. So you almost need the advice, then go away and employ one of them. They can run the payroll and do the HR bit, but you still need that deep technical knowledge on the tax and social security side.
Okay, thank you, Louise. So in the interest of time, because we are running a bit over time, we will stop the Q&A session here. So this concludes our Q&A session for today's webinar. Thank you for the questions sent through. Before we end today's session, we would like to draw your attention to some of the free tax resources which we have available. You can access these by visiting our PKF International website at www.pkf.com. On our website, you will be able to locate the closest PKF firm within your city for assistance with any global mobility tax challenges that you might be facing. For your convenience, you can search by country, city, keywords, or use our world map to search by region. On behalf of today's panel, I would first like to thank all of you for joining us today globally. I would also like to thank all of the presenters for their hard work. The fourth session of our global indirect tax series, something Louise already mentioned, the servitization of the economy and the importance of establishments, will be hosted on the 6th of April 2022. We have another topic on the 8th of June 2022. You can register for these events through our website www.pkf.com or email events@pkf.com for the registration information. Also keep an eye on PKF International's social media pages like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for the registration information of these upcoming events. In the meantime, be well and stay safe, and please join me in praying for world peace. We hope to see you in our next PKF virtual event. Thank you. Goodbye.